Grace, peace, and welcome to Podcast of the Wills, a podcast that treats Star Wars like a sacred text. I am your host, Nick Milkey, and we're here. We're Sunday night. We're ready to have a drink. We're ready to have a conversation. We're ready to hang out. And I am always thankful for those of you that join us on Sunday nights in the live stream, whether you're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Actually, we don't stream to Twitter. I don't know what I'm talking about. Facebook and YouTube streams. So if you're hanging out in the live chat or if you show up in a little bit, welcome. It's good to see you. If you are one of our audio listeners and you are getting this in your pod listener sometime this week, thank you also for joining us and being a part of the show. I always appreciate everybody who supports and hangs out with us. Couple of things right off the top. Merchandise. I am wearing my Dad Batch t-shirt, and you can't really see it because I've got this thing on. For those of you that are watching the Bad Batch and, Four Men and a Little Lady, as I keep calling it, the Dad Batch t-shirt is available in our TeePublic store if you want one of those. Shout out to my friend Michael. I know Michael grabbed one the other week. If you want to get one of those, there's Podcast of the Will shirts. And I'm also working on another shirt that I hope to get up sometime early this week. I am being stymied by a font, and I didn't know that a font had the power to hold me up as much as it has this week, but working on that. So always appreciate if somebody wants to buy one of our t-shirts, mugs, pillows. If one of you buys one of our pillows, that's kind of weird, but I'm not going to stop you from it because who knows, maybe you need a Dad Batch pillow. The other piece of housekeeping or thing that I wanted to mention is I have announced several times on this show the other podcast that we do, Heroes of the Mom CU, where my wife, who knows nothing about the Marvel movies, watches them with me and my four daughters. We're watching them in chronological order, and she is a fish out of water. As I've said from the very first episode, she thought that Mighty Mouse and He-Man were a part of the MCU. So those are pretty funny to listen to. We have not recorded an episode of that in several weeks because my oldest two girls are acting in a play right now, and the play opened last week and goes for another week. So nobody's been home, so we haven't been able to record Mom CU, but that is coming back pretty soon, and we will be ready to do the next episode. So hang in there. We'll let you know when those drop. And then also, as far as upcoming shows, we've got lots of fun upcoming guests, but two things I wanted to mention is we've got a couple of crossover episodes coming up not too far down the line, which I'm excited about. And also, the thing that kind of started Podcast of the Wills was breaking down the Star Wars movies into the different sections and kind of making them thematic. We did the first Star Wars movie, and we are ready to do Empire Strikes Back. And I have started mapping out what those episodes are going to look like. So we're going to change it up probably mid-September for about 6 weeks in a row, do something just a little bit different. But that's still to come, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But tonight I have a fantastic guest, and I'm excited to bring him on. A couple weeks ago, if you watched the show, we had on Connor Ratliff from the podcast Dead Eyes, the George Lucas Talk Show, and Connor, without missing a beat, almost before I think we started the show, said, "Hey, I've got somebody else you need to have on." And he said, "You need to have on Patrick Cotnoir." So Patrick is a producer. He is a producer for Marvel. He's worked for the Chris Gethard Show, the George Lucas Talk Show. He is also, as I was reading up on Patrick, he has worked at SNL. He's worked at Sesame Street, CNBC. He's done a bunch of cool stuff. But one of the things that I wanted to read, because I didn't catch this until right before we came on, he has also been the producer. Where'd I go? I lost it because I was going to actually read it. He is the producer and talent booker for ASCAT 3000 at UCB from 2014 until the theater's closing in 2020. During his tenure, he has booked guests like Mark Hamill, I think we've heard of him, Alan Alda, Phoebe Robinson, Aubrey Plaza, Kevin Bacon, Paul Schaefer, Jessica Williams, Kyle Mooney, Cecily Strong, double EGOT winner Bobby Lopez, and literally hundreds more. That's a big deal, and the fact that this gentleman is willing to come and hang out with me on a Sunday night thrills me to no end. So it is my great pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Patrick Cotnoir.
You make me sound so much cooler than I am.
Dude, you're cooler than all of us. You've got this cool thing down.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm wearing my nice little Babu shirt.
Hey,
I don't know why that was the one
Babu.
I chose. We support Babu. We support Babu.
Totally
we may not support
Babu.
all the things around Babu, but we support Babu.
That's right. Babu skirts in some sketchy waters at times.
Yeah, of course. We spice traders, get out of here.
That's right. What are you doing, Babu?
Babu, get out of there.
Who do you think you are?
You can live a better life. You're better than this.
You can do so much better. And then Babu has like the drug commercial from the 90s. I learned it from watching you.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it turns into a whole other thing.
This is your brain on spice. Yeah,
that's right. This is your brain rewiring droids that don't want to be messed with.
Yes.
Well, I am so thrilled that you're here tonight, and I really do mean it when I say it's an honor to have you, because you have done some really cool stuff, and you know, the people that you've gotten to connect with. We're going to talk about that a little bit going forward, but it's a thrill for me to have you here, just because, as I said to you before we came on air, and I've said this pretty much every time we've done an episode, like, I'm such a sucker for process, and I'm such a sucker for how things are made, how things get done. That anytime I get a chance to talk to people who, you know, work on the inside, like, it's cool to be a star, and who among us doesn't want to be the star, but like the people that also make those things happen are equally as impressive to me. And so I always relish the opportunity to get to talk to somebody on the inside and hear, you know, the stories that they can tell, or even just how it, you know, the lessons that it relates to and impacts your life. And we're going to get into that in a little bit, talking about Star Wars and some of that kind of stuff. Before we do that, I do have a little bit of important business to get to. And this has become, like I said, my running bit, where I try to become the Stanley Tucci of Star Wars podcasts, where I make a cocktail, I name it after a guest. I was a little slow this week on getting this together. And I wanted to tell everybody who was watching that I did not tell Patrick what the ingredients until like 2 hours ago.
That's very true. I did not have time to go around and get it.
I'm not holding it against him that he may not have one available. So that's the host's fault, but we're going to do it all the same. I have the stuff here. I have a slightly sketchy story to tell as we put this cocktail together. But first of all, I guess the big reveal is that tonight, and it's going to relate to the top 7 list. So I guess that's our little tease for everybody that's watching. The theme of the cocktail. So the cocktail is Patrick's Cantina Blue.
It looks good.
This is going to be a blue cocktail, which is where the sketchy part starts to come in. So I have my cup, as usual. Shout out to my buddy Jason. I have the Falcon being chased by TIE fighters rocks glass, which is my go-to. So I'm going to put some ice in here. I always get the camera sides wrong. It's all opposite. Sorry. Break up the ice. So we're going to throw some gin in here. I write amounts on these things, Patrick, but for the most part, we just kind of pour it in there because that's right. What are we? Amateurs? We're doing this the real way.
You put more or less gin in depending on how your day's going.
That's right. And because gin is good anyhow. So we have the gin. I'm going to have some lemonade. I'm going to put a little bit of lemonade in here. And then what do we have now? Oh, we've got seltzer. At my house, the ladies I live with all live off of LaCroix, various flavors of LaCroix. So
hang on, I'll be right back.
Throw some lime LaCroix in here. As we are doing this, and as I say all the time, I am not a professional, but I haven't spilt it on my computer yet. So I've got that going for me, which is nice. I'm going to go ahead and get to the garnish. I have a lime. This is what we're going with because that's what the instructions that I made up. Oh, there it is. Look, see? Totally on brand.
I was sort of there.
You're sort of there. Well, so I'm gonna get to the last ingredient because it's the most interesting ingredient. We have blue, and as the recipe card says, a splash of blue. So you would think that, okay, food coloring, that's the way this works. Well, we had food coloring, but the kind of food coloring we had was the gel kind, not the old school like liquid dropper kind.
Sure.
So what I have done is I've taken some simple syrup and I put that in there, and then I shook it up in hopes that it would make it what it needs to be. So I'm going to put just a little bit because it's going to end up being crazy sweet. And I'm going to stir it with an ink pen because, professionalism. And I now have Patrick's Cantina Blue.
Looks pretty good.
I'm going to raise a toast to you, sir, and thank you for being here tonight. Cheers.
Cheers.
I believe that'll work. So we've got that out of the way. Out my little nonsense, my little pet project here.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm sad that I'm missing it. I will have to I'll try it another time.
That's right. We'll make sure you get the recipe, a copy of your own, so that you can try it out. So we're going to jump in. We're going to talk a little bit about Patrick. So do me a favor and introduce any of our listeners or viewers to just kind of generically who Patrick is.
Sure. I'm going to talk in the third person. Patrick is a talent booker and producer based in New York. Was the booker for the Chris Gethard Show, which was a Funny or Die talk show that ran for a couple of years, produced by Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. The show that you mentioned, ASCAT, which was a long-running improv show in New York at the UCB Theater, and is coming back under a different name at Caveat Theater in New York. You're going to be able to stream it online and watch it wherever you are in the world, which is very cool. And then I produce and book the George Lucas Talk Show, which was a weekly talk show hosted by comedian Connor Ratliff, who's friend of the show, playing George Lucas, and Griffin Newman played Watto. We would have real guests on as themselves, and that went on for a very long time. It went on almost every week during the pandemic up until March. Just kind of, working on cool things around the city and trying to have fun. And I think that's the Patrick way. This is the way for Patrick.
It sounds like an admirable way to go, mixed with probably some exciting road bumps, obstacles, fun along the way. I know, having watched a bunch of episodes of the George Lucas Talk Show in particular, there's no shortage of fun there. I haven't seen a ton of Chris Gethard, but I have seen several of those episodes. And again, just madcap, silliness, fun, but it's the kind of humor that appeals to me and makes me laugh. And so I love seeing that kind of stuff. And it's, again, exciting to know and get to talk to somebody who kind of worked on the inside of that. So as we transition away from that for a minute, you're obviously a Star Wars fan. Tell us a little bit about your Star Wars origin story. Go as deep as you want. Go, first time you saw it.
Yeah.
Anything, and kind of how Patrick came to Star Wars.
I mean, I was trying to think about it this morning because I assumed you would ask this question. I want to say the first time I saw it was special editions in theaters, because I would have been, I'm going to date myself here, I would have been 5 years old when that came out. So that feels like the time when I probably saw it. I don't think we had the VHSs. Like, my parents weren't big fans. My aunt was, but that was kind of it in my family. So I think that probably was the first time. But then, fell in very deep, very quickly. That Christmas, I guess it was Christmas '97. Got so many action figures and toys and everything because they were releasing all the Power of the Force figures and everything. Got a lot of stuff, too much stuff. And then, went full bore into Phantom Menace, into Attack of the Clones. I was a little bit out by the time Revenge of the Sith came out. I was 13 at that point, and I had sort of backed off a little bit. But then kind of went, it was always still there, but was not as heavily, entrenched in it. I was not getting the toys. All of my toys basically stopped after Attack of the Clones, pretty much. And that's sort of how I can tell when I was oh, you don't have any Revenge of the Sith Legos? Okay, got it. That was your demarcation.
That's when we moved on.
Yeah. But then, went back in high school and stuff. And then obviously when the Lucas show started up in 2014, I guess was probably when it really started, kickstarted it back into action. And then for the sequels and stuff, it's, it hasn't stopped from then. So
absolutely. Well, you talked about the toys and getting a bunch of the toys. Did any of your toys survive into adulthood?
Oh,
do you
absolutely.
Still have some? Do you have a bunch of your stuff?
I don't have a lot of stuff with me at this apartment, but last time I was home, I put them all into a Rubbermaid, bin or whatever, just so I had them in one spot. Yeah. So they're all there. You just don't have a lot of space in New York. So you gotta, that is not to say I do not have a lot of Star Wars stuff in this apartment.
No. That's totally fair.
Not childhood stuff.
Yeah. As I say on this show all the time, this little studio that I've created for myself is one corner of my garage because I live with my wife and 4 daughters. And so this is the only space I have. And as I see things and think, oh, I need to get something else, I have a lot of real moments of going, but where the hell am I going to put that? I don't have a place for that.
Streaming the Lucas show online this year was bad for me. Just because for a while it was just the whole background
wall to wall.
Yeah, so that was not good for my eBay addiction. you know?
Totally. Well, and that's one of those, if you're like me, that's one of those rabbit holes that you can disappear down and look up and like, it's like you've gone on some sort of binge and you wake up and you're like, what happened? And then boxes just start showing up and you're like, I don't remember any of this.
I don't remember ordering this. A third Ponda Baba action figure? Okay.
That's right. I mean, if you say so.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the toys are fun. The collectibles are fun. You saw the original trilogy as the re-release, the special editions.
Yeah.
And so then you said, how old did you say you were for Phantom Menace?
Phantom Menace, I would have been 7, which I think is kind of the perfect age for it. You know what I mean? Like that's like,
yeah.
If you're like hyped for Phantom Menace, I feel like that's, and I still love Phantom Menace, but at the time, like everything is being marketed to you, everything is being thrown at you as a 7-year-old boy in the United States.
Well,
you know?
And it's so interesting because I was halfway through college when the Phantom Menace came out. And so to be in a very different place than you were, because I grew up with the original trilogy, I was born in 78. And so to come in, on that different mode, you're exactly right. Like that was the target audience really. Like, and it's, if we get super, I don't know if philosophical is the word I want to use about it, but like that was George Lucas. Like George Lucas is the one that has said so many times, these were movies made for kids. Like they were adventure and they got a little scary at times, but we all watch scary stuff. I realized the other day, because I think last week was the 35th anniversary of RoboCop. Oh, and that may be the first movie that I saw that was rated R that I was like, I shouldn't be watching this at this age.
Sure.
But so when things like Phantom Menace came out, that was the target age. And like you said, marketing in particular. And I've got a group of friends online in our podcasting community that lately they've been tweeting, one of the hashtags has been Hot Phantom Menace Summer. And so everybody's like hitting up eBay for I don't know that there's been a Star Wars movie that had more merchandise than Phantom Menace, because the sequel trilogy was very minimal.
Yes. And I think it was a mistake. And I think they know that, like at the time they got very overzealous to do that kind of thing. And now there's still, hangers with Jar Jar and Pit Droid action figures like hanging out.
Well, it is. And to this point, like, now that stuff is essentially on the verge of being considered vintage, there's so much of it that can be found. So like the resale is not high. So like if you really loved Jar Jar or Padme or whatever, like you can still go get that stuff. But some of it is so weird. Somebody put up the other day the Phantom Menace Cush balls that were like the little rubber band balls with like
yes. There's Watto, and I think there's there's a couple of them.
There's a Watto one, and then somebody else put up there was a Sebulba, and then somebody put up pictures of the inflatable chairs that were all the different characters. And so like you blew it up kind of like a pool float, but it was a chair. And like the Darth Maul inflatable chair is terrifying. And I'm almost 43 years old.
It was a recurring character on the George Lucas talk show for a while. We had one. Yes.
That's amazing. I missed that part of that. But yeah, it's one of those things that it's just interesting to me to see where marketing trails go. And now I think with social media and the internet, like, we can still go get the things we want. Now, if it's older stuff, like what I grew up with, we're going to pay more of a premium because we all lost our toys as kids and buried them in the backyard.
Do you have space? Do you have space for that inflatable Darth Maul chair?
That's the question. That's not important, Patrick. I would sit in it to do this show right now. Don't bother me with details. Don't bother me with your details. Well, I'm going to jump us off Star Wars track for 1 second because I missed something that I was going to do a minute ago.
Sure.
And thanks to you and Twitter, I feel like you need to tell us a little bit about this.
Oh yeah, sure. That's my Naboo Starfighter pajamas. This picture was taken on my birthday in 2000, so I turned 8 years old. I'm assuming, I don't remember this, I'm assuming I got that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire book for my birthday, maybe from a family member who didn't live near us. So I'm guessing we took this picture for my parents to send to them. But I've been scanning all of my family photos during this pandemic to make them digitized, and that was one I came across. And
and for any of the audio listeners, we have 8-year-old Patrick
Mhm.
in his Naboo Starfighter Phantom Menace pajamas, which are phenomenal.
Zip up onesies.
Zip up footy pajamas,
Yeah.
sitting on a stool or crouching by the television,
Yeah.
holding his Who Wants to Be a Millionaire book up to the TV while Regis is on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yes.
And it's golden. Everything about that is fantastic, and I love that. So you put it on Twitter the other day, and I thought, no, we're going to have to talk about that.
You gotta. I get it. I don't blame you at all.
Forgive the detour. So you grew up with Star Wars. You grew up especially through the Phantom Menace, and like you said, trailed off in high school, came back to it. So what
I do want to be clear. I still did see Revenge of the Sith opening night.
Okay.
So it was not a full trail off, but it was a trail off.
Sure. It was less of an obsession and more of like, oh yeah, I need to see that next one.
You know what? Something that I'm thinking about. I think I actually saw it before opening night.
Ooh.
Because the North American headquarters for Lego was in our hometown.
Okay.
And my friend's mom worked for Lego, and since Star Wars and Lego were so intrinsically connected, especially at that point, it was like peak like making Legos for them. I think we went to an early screening. I might be making that up, but I know I went with them, and it was early. So that might be exclusive.
Either way,
we got exclusive. Yeah,
that's right. There it is. So you go through that phase. Did you? And it's like you said, you kind of came back around to it some in high school, probably as a lot of us as we get to be adults and appreciate not just the action parts of it, but the storytelling parts of it.
Yeah.
And, kind of what it, the philosophical aspects that we either try to shoehorn into it or may actually be there either way. So for you, were you, or are you even, Clone Wars, Rebels, any of that kind of stuff? Did any of the ancillary materials, is that all stuff for you?
Yes. Now I did not watch Clone Wars at the time. I watched Clone Wars maybe in college, late college or something like that. But yeah, I'm full bore, oh my gosh, what's the name of the other show? Resistance?
Resistance, yeah.
Resistance. I watched all of Resistance.
Yep. Awesome.
Wow, I'm losing so many points by not remembering the name of that show. But yeah, no, I'm full in now. That's no awesome. Matter how much I try to get out, Sure. It just keeps me
Are you current on the Bad Batch?
I'm one episode behind.
Okay.
So I saw the first Hera episode. I have not seen the second one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I really love, and this to my regular listeners and viewers, they hear me say this all the time. But I was of an age where, like, when Clone Wars was on originally, like, I was out of college, I was working, I was technically a grown up. I'm still technically a grown up. I'll always technically be a grown up. But I just didn't watch it, and it didn't grab me the times that I saw it.
Yeah.
But what I did was, at some point, and it had already been on for a little while, I got into Rebels. Yeah. And Rebels is some of my absolute favorite Star Wars storytelling.
Sure.
Especially in the last, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so part of what I did with Clone Wars is I used it like a reference book when they talk about something in Rebels, and I'd go, oh,
Rebels makes you want to go back to Clone Wars because there's
and so that's what I did. If it was the Darksaber arc, or you start getting to like World Between Worlds, and you have to go back and watch Mortis and all those other things that so in the process of doing that, like, I've seen most of it, but at some point I owe it to myself to kind of start mostly from the beginning and try to do the whole thing. And even now with Bad Batch, because
Bad Batch
when
is
the last season
Clone Warsy.
The last season of Clone Wars came out last year, I was definitely going to watch it because I was, being a content creator and, watching everything else that came out. But like those first four episodes that were the Bad Batch, like, I just kind of didn't do. I was like, okay, I'm waiting for Ahsoka. Like, that's what I was really there for. Yeah. And so when I got to the first episode of actual Bad Batch, when it started, 12 weeks ago or whatever it was, I was in the tank from the beginning. And I love, I feel like I could write a novel about just the beauty of that animation style. And as it continues to evolve, it's really so, like, it stuns me sometimes. Like the shot with Hera in that first episode when she's got her hand up in the sky and the clouds and the birds, it's like, it's just amazing. And I'm going, I never thought I would think that much about lighting in an animated TV show, but like,
it truly is. when Star Wars animated TV is done, it will be, I mean, even right now, it's a fascinating look at the evolution of CG animation on TV. Just you watch that Clone Wars movie and it's rough. It's rough because it was like, the budget was like, it was high for what it was, but it was like, obviously they were trying to make it work. And just going from that to what it is now is just so drastically different and fascinating to look at, and just like seeing how much it's improved and how much they've taken what they've, learned over multiple shows and figured out how to make it look the best it can. And obviously we think that it's the best it can look right now. And 3 shows from now, we're going to be like, oh, Bad Batch looks like garbage.
Yeah, that's right. But then again, here they are making live action TV shows basically inside of a video game that, looks more real than anything that George did in the prequels. So, well, and the other thing that I've thought about too, talking about Clone Wars and the evolution, like you said, of the animation style, is that's a show that has literally grown up with its target audience. Like when that show came out in 2013 or 14 or whenever it was,
Clone Wars.
To go back and watch, Clone Wars.
Clone Wars came out in 2008.
Was it 8? Okay, so even farther back.
Yeah.
To go back that far.
Yeah.
So to go back that far and to watch those first episodes and to watch the episodes now, obviously visually it looks different, but the themes are stronger now because I think the target audience is what they've written it based around. So if you were, 12 in 2008 and now you're, 23 or 24, I don't do math, but you're looking at it from a different perspective, and you've got so much more of like the family aspect of it with, the Bad Batch, the found family thing that is so prevalent in Star Wars. I love, one of my favorite things so far in Bad Batch has been the development of what I grew up with as the Galactic Empire, the transition away from the old Republic to, chain codes and taking over these worlds and really seeing, I think some of these episodes we've gotten are planting some of the seeds of what the rebellion is going to be with the guy that they went and got off of the other planet when he tries to leave and the droid was like, you can help, but it can't be today. Like he's going to end up being a cornerstone of the rebellion. And I
really like this era of storytelling because I feel like there's so much that has not been explored in those 20 years that it's like nice that they're going, some people complain where it's like, oh, they try to fill in everything and nothing's left to the imagination. But like there's so many years in this era that have nothing storytelling wise. And I like, I don't know if you read the comics, but the Charles Soule Darth Vader run that takes place like right after Revenge of the Sith and like in that time frame is so good. And just seeing, watching the Empire get built and like even just Vader figuring out how to use his suit is just great. And I think the Cassian Andor show that's coming out is going to be really cool because it's going to be a lot of that, early Rebellion, early Empire, all that stuff. But yeah, I think when you watch Clone Wars, I think it will give you a new appreciation. This is what I always tell people. It'll give you a new appreciation for the prequels. The characters there, the settings there, everything that you see gets expanded upon. So like you see, Ki-Adi-Mundi in the prequels and you're like, okay, great. He's got a big head. He does a couple things, but he doesn't really do much. And then you watch the show and he's got like 20 episodes devoted to him. And you're like, oh, okay, I know who this guy is now. I care about him when you see the clones shoot him in the back. Like before, you don't really care. It's just some guy with a big head that you see in 3 movies. Like he doesn't do anything. But once you have that show for context around it, and it makes the Anakin stuff so much better. It makes, it builds on so many things that were not necessarily addressed in the movies that I feel like could have helped. But it's, again, something when you have the luxury of that much time and storytelling that, it helps. It helps a lot.
Absolutely. Well, and I like this comment that We Are Trash People put up that says, it's also really interesting seeing the Jedi grapple with the scale of the Order's failures. And that's one of the reasons I love The Last Jedi so much. Like those elements of The Last Jedi and Luke talking to Rey, like,
I'm
Last
so
Jedi is,
I'm so happy
it may be my 3rd favorite Star Wars movie overall.
Listen, it's so freaking good. Question. It's an uncomfortable question. I'm glad we got it out of the way right up top.
We're here to ask those questions. That's fine. I'm not afraid of those. Because and I am, and this is, we don't talk about this a lot on this show because there's so much negative nonsense
Yeah.
in Star Wars fandom and
Yeah.
fandom menace and all those different kinds of things.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to have
boring.
fun. This is Star Wars.
It's boring.
Yeah.
Those
What's
people
the point of
stink.
that?
Stay away from them. You know what? Here's my
we
tip
don't
to
need that.
everybody.
So we don't do that here. So if you like one that I don't, that's
Yeah.
cool. I'm not going to be
Give
mad
a
at you. I'm not
little-
going to set my couch on fire. I'm just going to go,
Yeah.
hey, I'm glad you
Let
like
me give
that.
a little Patrick. Let me give a little Patrick tip.
Please.
If you see any of those people-
Meet Patrick at camera 2.
you know what?
Right
Just
here.
full screen me. Make me full screen.
That's right.
Full
Here we
screen.
go.
All the way. Here we go.
Oh, that's not it.
No.
There we go.
If you see those people on Twitter, just block them. Just block them. It makes your life so much easier. Okay? And just search Fandom Menace. Block all those people. You'll be happier.
Right.
You'll go to sleep nicer. It'll be great. It'll be great, and it'll make you like Star Wars more because those people stink, and you don't need them in your life.
That's right. And as I like to say,
come at me, guys.
That's right. Come at Patrick. And as I like to say, and to quote something else that makes them nuts, in Rise of Skywalker, that quote, "There's more of us." Guess what? There's more of us positive Star Wars fans than they are the one group of a-holes that's trying to screw it up for everybody else, or just make everybody else hate something because they're unhappy with some other failure in their life or whatever. So
it's so much fun just to like Star Wars.
It really is.
And I think that's the thing people lose sight of, where it's just like, if you don't like it, that's fine, but like, don't be a jerk about it. Like, who cares?
That's right.
Who cares?
And again,
like,
one of the coolest things about Star Wars is learning all the reasons different movies resonate more strongly with different folks. I have had more conversations with people that are not those people and had the opportunity to listen to them say, well, this is what Phantom Menace really said to me, or this is what Revenge of the Sith really said to me, or why. And I've changed my mind about more things in Star Wars that I thought I didn't like by listening to someone smart go, well, it's also about this, and it's also about this, and also it's fun. Like, that's what we're doing here.
Cool. And there's little rubber monsters moving around the whole time. Like, what else do you want?
I mean, how do you get mad at that?
Yeah,
that's right. Well, and as I've said many times, if it makes you mad, why are you still here? Like, what other part of our life do we do stuff like that?
I agree. The thing I do like about there being so much Star Wars now is the things that you don't like just don't have to matter as much. When there were only 4 movies or 5 movies, there's more coming. When there was okay, Phantom Menace is here, there's basically only 4 movies at that point. Like, of course there's Ewoks and some animated stuff, but at that point there was less of it, so it makes it seem more important. But once there's 12 movies, it's like, okay, just don't rewatch that movie. It's all right. You'll be fine.
Yep. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And so I love that we have the possibility with these animated shows and the era that they're in right now with the Bad Batch. And if we get another season, or if we get, whatever the next thing after it is to flesh out more of what Luke talked about in Last Jedi, which was the failure of the Jedi Order and realizing after it was too late, oh, this is where we went wrong. I'm totally here for all that stuff. So let's jump back for a minute. And then we're going to get into our top 7 list. But I wanted to finish out kind of talking about what you do. We've talked about who you are in general. We've talked about your Star Wars love, which is very apparent. I would love to hear a little bit more about some of your producing and booking work and stuff you've done, but also maybe more specifically, how you've been able to weave your love of Star Wars into some of that. Obviously, some of the obvious things are George Lucas talk show. Yeah. But, one thing that certainly has to can't go without mentioning is that you got to book Mark Hamill and be involved in that process.
And Anthony Daniels.
And Golden Tony, as the Star Wars Minute boys would call him.
Yeah.
And you've been on Star Wars Minute, which is another one of my favorites. So lots of good stuff there. So talk about your work and kind of tying that with Star Wars, where you've been able to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically based in New York. Which is good because a lot of people come through New York, a lot of famous people, doing press or doing, book tours or whatever, or just hanging out or shooting something here. So I'm very lucky in that when I'm running a show or booking a show, trying to get guests for it, most people will come through the city at some point, and I can, reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to come do this fun, stupid thing? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they don't respond, sometimes they say no. And, it's just part of the gig. But, the things that I work on, we try, depending on who's working on it, to always make it some kind of experience where you're going to remember it. It's not like and this is not to pick out any one show, but like it's not like you're going on Fallon and talking about your ski vacation from last month and the chairlift went wrong. Like it's that, those kind of stuff, as great as they are, fairly disposable. You go on the Gethard show and you're John Hamm, and we build an episode around you wrestling with professional wrestlers. Like you're not going to forget that. That's something that sticks in there because you're like, oh yeah, remember when I got in a real wrestling ring and got in a sumo suit and got suplexed by Rhino from the WWE? So I think that's always been something that has been important to me when I'm trying to pick out new jobs or look for new jobs, is like, what is not a boring run-of-the-mill show. I want people to have fun, and I want people to remember the thing that they worked on. So, when I run into them later on, I could be like, hey, we worked on this thing. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I absolutely remember that because it was a cool thing. But working and living in New York, you don't get a ton of Star Wars people coming through just because a lot of them are British, or a lot of them live in LA, or a lot of them, you just don't have that kind of turnover that you might if you lived in LA, or you lived in London or whatever.
Sure.
So there have been a few, and obviously with the Lucas show, brings in a lot of Star Wars into my work. And when we were doing it during the pandemic, we would do live streams so we could have guests from anywhere. So like we had Mike Quinn, who played Nien Nunb, and we had Tim Rose, who's Admiral Akbar, Julian Glover, General Veers, all these people who live in UK, and we would never get to have if they were in New York, because 87-year-old Julian Glover is not traveling to New York for fun anymore. It's just not something that happens. Ahmed Best was on, all these cool people. But the show is also not, we always say it's not about Star Wars, which is kind of true. But it also gives us the excuse where if we want to have someone who is Star Wars related come on the show, we can. But getting, people for that, they know what they're going to talk about. Sometimes we don't really prep guests in advance, but like you're going on a Star Wars show, we're going to talk about Star Wars a little bit, but then we're also going to ask, Julian Glover about, he like narrated some marionette puppet show movie that Griffin, one of the sidekick loves. And it was something that Julian Glover was like, I don't even remember what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea. You think you're going to come on and talk to about Star Wars, but then if we're just going to talk to you about whatever.
Well, and Julian Glover would be one of those ones that would be so great, because obviously you have Star Wars, but you have Last Crusade, you have Game of Thrones. Like, there's some big rocks in there that.
Yeah, he has an insane career where he's like the ultimate convention guest, Yes,
exactly.
I don't know what ATG is. Listen, we got better guests, but I don't know what ATG is. So I'm going to just tell
it's Around the Galaxy podcast, and it's our buddy Pete.
Great.
So.
Great.
Totally a good one.
I don't know them, but we got good guests.
I'll hook you up. We'll make something happen.
Great. So yeah, we've been really lucky. We had Ahmed Best come on and talk for like an hour and a half just about like his philosophy on life, and like we talked about Star Wars, but he talked about like neo-futurism for a very long time, and it was just fascinating to just hear him talk about things other than Jar Jar Binks for the most part, But it's always fun when people like him come on and they're like, "Oh, well, George, you remember we were in Tunisia together." And we were filming Phantom, like acting like they are talking to George Lucas is always the funniest thing to me. We had Whoopi Goldberg on, and her just being like, "Yeah, Watto, that's true." Just the fact that we like that Whoopi, yes,
she was in it. She was bought into the whole thing.
But it's the best when these random, crazy, people that you never expect to be talking to are like, "Oh yeah, no, Watto, you bring up a really good point." Like it's so insane. But then what was I going to say?
Has there ever been? No, go ahead.
No. You.
I was going to say, obviously, it's so wonderful to have the people that get it and are in there to be in the bit and do the thing. Has there ever been like a really good like crash and burn, like somebody showed up and they didn't get it at all, and it was really awkward and difficult? And I guess you don't have to name a name if you don't want to.
I won't name names, but it's rare. It's real rare because something I don't want to toot my own horn, but like one of the part of the job for me is like prepping people to be like, this is what this is if you buy into it and you go along with it, you're not going to look dumb, you know?
Right.
And that's what people care about. People care about not looking dumb. So like, if you're like, listen, if you call him George and you call him Watto, people will love you and people will like be on your side. If you come on and you're like, what is this? Who are you? What is this? Like, people are gonna be like,
they're going to be against you from the start.
They're gonna be against you because you're not having fun. If you just relax and you have fun, you're gonna have a good time. Very rarely, and it happened more when it was a stage show than when it was a live stream, people would not go along with it or just be like, okay, George, you know, wink. And like really like wink, wink. It's not fun. And it's like, it makes you look like you're not in on the bit that you signed up to be. And the good thing about it was when it was a stage show, it was a midnight show on Friday in the East Village of New York. So like, if you already said yes to that many steps, you know, where it's like you're coming to a midnight show in the East Village, you're probably going to be on board just because it's like a lot of work to get there and to like be up until 2 a.m. because you were on a show. Like, so you might as well be on board and you might as well have fun.
You've committed to it before it ever started.
Yeah. But as far as like Hamill and Anthony Daniels, Hamill was in town for Comic-Con. It was before The Last Jedi. It was October before The Last Jedi. And he was good friends with my buddy Anthony Atamanuik, who was the host of the President Show on Comedy Central. He was a Trump impersonator. It was a show that I worked on. But they become good friends because Hamill's very, you know, resistance on Twitter. He's very, you know, rah-rah about politics stuff, and he really loved Anthony. So I had sent an ask, and then Anthony, you know, helped bring it home and lock him in for it. But they were very nervous because he was doing signings and photos and everything. And they're like, he sometimes loses his voice because he's just talking so much over the weekend to people. So it was one of those things where I like sort of had to have someone as a backup. And I like had someone else who was in town for Comic-Con where I was like, listen, here's the deal. Mark Hamill's coming. He doesn't know if he's actually going to be able to do it. I'm going to give you tickets. You can come to the show. You can come hang out. I might need you, you know? And it was like, I had a really cool guest and I'm like bummed that she did not get to do it. But at the same time, she was like, yeah, I want to see Mark Hamill 100%.
Absolutely. Come. Yeah. It's a win-win situation.
It was a win-win for everybody. Everyone was psyched. Everyone was happy. But he was great. He was so good. And he's a master storyteller. That's like his thing is like, he's like very good at telling stories. And he was so nice to everybody when we were leaving. I don't think I've ever told the story. When we were leaving the theater, we were getting ready to go. And we were like, oh God, how do we get him out of here? Because it was like the theater was in a basement under a grocery store. And there was like one exit. It was a nightmare to get into. Right. But we're like, how do we get him out of here? And he goes, well, I can just go stand at the door and say goodbye to everybody as they walk out. I'll take pictures. We'll do whatever. And we're like, no, don't do that. Yep. You don't have to do that. But he was like all for it. He was like, yeah, I want to go say hi to people. I want to go talk to people. And at the end, like we left and there was like a group hanging out outside, like probably 30 people maybe. And he like stayed and signed autographs and took pictures with everybody 6 hours after he was selling autographs for like $200 at Comic-Con. And it was like, I think that shows that's like, it shows his, his like belief system. He's like just a good guy who like likes the fans and wants to like, he's a part of them. He like, when we were there, the thing that he and I talked a lot about was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein because he loves that movie and he loves like old monster movies. Right. And that was like what our main conversation was about. It wasn't about Star Wars. It wasn't about, the Joker or whatever. It was just like, because one of the things, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a lot.
No, this is awesome. This is what we're here for.
Yeah, no, I figure. I think one of the ways to be a good talent booker is to not fanboy out unless it's appropriate. Sure. Sometimes it comes up where you're like, oh, I want to talk to you about this. And it happens a lot where you're like, I love this thing. Let's talk about this. But the thing that gets people to be on your side and to be like, oh, I like being here, I like talking to you, is just, I know something that you enjoy. Let's talk about that instead of the thing that everyone wants to talk to you about. So it's like, I know you love, old monster movies and monster masks and like, 1940s, like horror movies, stuff like that. And it came up. I worked it into the conversation organically, and that was what he talked about, and he was happy about it. And the night went about as perfect as it could have gone, which is like the great thing. It like everything worked out fine. He had a very good time. I have a poster. I have a Force Awakens poster I got at Comic-Con the year before, 2 years before maybe, when Carrie Fisher was there, and I had her sign it, and then I had him sign it too. And he wrote, "For Patrick, thanks for the memories. Forcefully yours, Mark Hamill." And then I like tweeted about the show the next day, being like, he's a gem, he's the best. And he tweeted like, "You're not so bad yourself, Patrick. Thanks for a night I'll never forget." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great. I'm all done here. I'm done."
My job here is finished.
Yeah, it was the ideal way to do it. That's true. Star Wars is lucky to have Mark. I just wish people would talk to him about other stuff sometimes, because I feel like he has so much to say, and you always feel, you see those interviews, and I feel like this with a lot of Star Wars people. You see an interview with Natalie Portman, and they bring up Star Wars, and you just see a little piece of them die.
Exactly.
Like, we're gonna talk about it again. Okay, I get it.
That little twitch in the eye, just like, here we go.
But then, conversely, Anthony Daniels was in town promoting his book, which is great. And if people have not read it,
is great
because it's really good.
I did the audiobook version, which he read, which to me made it that much better.
That's great. And he, I'm working at Marvel, and I was like, "Guys, we have to get Anthony Daniels. Like, what are we talking about? We have to get Anthony Daniels." And I, talked him into it, convinced him. And the way that we did it was like, Star Wars does so much, Marvel does so much Star Wars content, and has for 50 years. They had done that one-off with the red arm, how he got the red arm and everything like that. And of course, everyone wanted to talk to him too, which was great. But he was someone who, like, he wants to talk about Star Wars. He loves talking about Star Wars. He loves talking about being C-3PO. That's like, he loves it. And he was so great. He like stayed in the podcast for longer than we had, asked him for. He went down and hung out with the editors for the Star Wars comics and like chatted with them. And, it was an ideal situation, and he was super fun. But yeah, it's so cool when that stuff works out, and when, people are nice and people are good people and are friendly, and that's kind of that's the best part of the job.
It means the world. And just to bring it even down to a smaller scale, this show that I do, I've had a podcast since 2018. We transitioned to this live stream format back in January. And, a good bit of it has been like other podcast hosts or friends of mine, people that I've met, through this media, especially over the last year. But also, and I'm taking all these notes and like listening to you talk about booking. And I listened to the podcast that I told you the other day, the UCB Digital podcast that you were talking about, some of the things to book. And I'm sitting there taking all these copious notes, because for me, the chance to get a Connor or a Patrick, or I've had on Alex Segura, who wrote the Poe Dameron Freefall book. I've had Lauren Mary Kim, who was the stunt double in a bunch of Mandalorian stuff, and she also was Ahsoka in the Ahsoka Maul fight in Clone Wars Season 7. So to be able to get people, like, I joke all the time that I may be the smallest podcast that has the highest quality guests.
That's great.
But for me, in the world that we live in, it's fishing in Twitter DMs and Instagram messages and sending somebody a thing and being very kind. Not disingenuously, like I mean it, but just saying, "Hey, look, I know you get asked 1,000 times, by people," and trying to also find, everybody's trying to get Freddie Prinze Jr. to come talk about, something and be Kanan or whatever.
Of course.
So I'm not necessarily trying to do that. Yeah. But like, there is something to saying, I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear, of course I want to talk about Star Wars, but like, I want to hear about you. I want to hear about the things that, drive you not only to have been able to work in Star Wars or to be, in these other things. So I love hearing your stories about, because obviously you're on a much larger scale than I'll ever be at, but the truth Senator is still the same.
Don't do that. Don't sell yourself.
No, seriously. The truth Senator is still the same. It's about making a connection with somebody, being genuine. And I've had more people tell me, I don't do that. I don't.
Sure.
One guy said, "Look, I tell everybody no and no hard feelings. And one day if I change my mind, I'll open it up to everybody and we'll be off to the races." Yeah. And that, half the people would probably be pissed about that and be like, "Well, that guy was such a jerk." And I go, "No, I get it. He asks 400 times a day. And so I said, thank you so much. I look forward to the chance to maybe, be in the race one day, or because again, it's for fun. We're talking about nerdy stuff because it's fun. And this is a hobby for me. This isn't my job. I have to go to work tomorrow, and that's fine. But I love that the truths about the way you do that job as a producer and as a talent booker and that kind of thing still ring true to the things that I'm doing on a hobby level. And it's just a matter of saying, hey, and sometimes asking somebody. I've got a buddy, my buddy Mari, who was Max on the show Homeland. Is a friend of mine, and he was on a long time ago. And I reached out to him one day. I was like, hey, you've done voiceover for the Old Republic Star Wars video game. Like, can you, and having the chance sometimes to make a personal connection through a friend or through, somebody like, again, Connor said, hey, you need to have Patrick. And I was like, put it on the books. Let's go. That also makes a difference too. But again, it comes down to being kind, being gracious, working with somebody in a time frame that works for them. And like you said, I love the idea that you're in New York. All these people are going to be here at some point. Like, that's a great way to look at it that I hadn't considered.
It's definitely,
it's neat.
It's an advantage. It's an advantage being here. But it's also, you don't have the exact same talent pool as being somewhere like Los Angeles or London or something. Like that. It's just a different group of people. And the nice thing about this last year with Lucas is being able to open it up to all those people where it's like, I never thought we would have this person on or this person because they just they don't live around here and they never come here. So like, when would that ever happen? And then, we had a holiday special and I think it was like 18 and a half hours it ran. It was a fundraiser thing. And I think we had like 80 guests on, where it was just like, where else is that going to happen except the place where it's like, just come on for 10 minutes, just come do this. It'll be fun. You'll have a good time. And people wanted to do stuff. No, go ahead.
That's right. And the other point that you made a minute ago, talking about even over the course of quarantine, it opened up the chance, like you said, to have a Julian Glover, to have somebody over Zoom, somebody from London. Honestly, that works the same way for me, because I'll tell you a secret. All these people aren't coming through Montgomery, Alabama for the most part, but the world gets smaller when I have the ability to sit in my garage and make this connection. I told the story, I think last week, we had on Clayton Sandell from ABC News, is a huge Star Wars fan. And he talked about starting out in radio. And I said, well, as a kid, I had a Fisher-Price record player and a Fisher-Price tape player, and I wanted to be a DJ. And so I would make my own radio shows by doing the talk part and then playing a record and recording it and doing this whole thing. And then here I am as a 42-year-old producing my own pseudo TV show on the internet in my garage. Because the world got smaller because of technology. And so I do have the ability. When Lauren Mary Kim was on and we talked, she was in Thailand working on something, and like, there's no other way that would have ever been able to happen other than the glory of modern technology.
I think that's the way that it will be after this too. I think people maybe will want to break from being in front of their computers all the time, but I think this will definitely become the new normal of like, you can do it. It's so much easier. You don't have to fly out to New York to do press, which of course makes my job a lot harder when I'm trying to book comedy shows in person. It's definitely been tough because a lot of people either don't live here anymore or not coming to New York anytime soon or not traveling, which I get, and I don't blame them at all. But I think it's going to be definitely a different world for talent booking after this, for the better and for the worse. And I don't know what's going to change, and I don't know, if it's going to be fun after this. If it's not, if it's going to be less fun, I don't know. We'll find out. But it's definitely going to be different. And I think it will be easier for you and for shows like yours, to do more remote interviews after this, and people will be more open to it. Whereas I feel like in 2019, if you ask someone to do an interview over Skype, like it was not commonplace. Like, people
and even no doubt. Well, even for me, like I said, we started as an audio podcast for the first 3 years. And we were very sporadic in getting shows out because the guy that I started the show with, we didn't live in the same town. So we were trying to do it in a very early on version of recording the audio on Skype or recording and me sending my audio to him so that he could edit it all. Like, it was a whole deal. And now between, StreamYard and Anchor and all these things that, like, obviously it's its own cottage industry. Surprisingly enough, there's not just Star Wars podcasts. There's lots of other ones too. But like that's a whole industry in of itself. And so like I could make an entire episode from my phone if I needed to, because again, the world shrinks, the accessibility and the ability to create, which is the part I love, because this is something I've wanted to do for years, and now it's accessible and it's something that I can do even if it's just for me. So it's all very fascinating, and I love your perspective of it. And again, the opportunity to connect with some of these folks. Whether it's Star Wars or otherwise, I just think that's really cool.
And another thing during that, I mean, it's been fun meeting other Star Wars fans, like doing podcasts like this, where it's just or video shows, you know, whatever.
Sure.
But getting to meet people, because I was not really connected in the Star Wars community before this, but like, you know, having that platform of doing the Lucas show like opens you up to being a part of other people's worlds, and it's fun. It's been fun and cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's do this. Let's make another pivot. Let's turn a little bit. One of the features of this show that we normally do is we have a top 7 list, and I ask our guests we do a topic and I ask them to kind of come up with their list. We count it down from 7 to 1. And so when I asked you any ideas or things you wanted to hit on, you threw this one back at me immediately, which was my first sign that there was a passion here. The other sign that there was a passion here was I watched the, you
watched Screen Test, right?
Screen Test. Yes, I watched the Screen Test Star Wars game show with Paul and you talked about and Amy, you talked about this in here. So Patrick's top 7 list that we're going to get into tonight is his top 7 Star Wars Cantina cuties. Alliteration intended.
Yeah. Now I feel good about this list. I want to be clear.
It's a great list, and I'm excited to dig into it. And so what we're going to do is I've got a little slideshow that we'll keep up here, and we're going to go through them 7 to 1. And I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear why you picked each one.
Yeah.
What, you know, it can be crazy thoughts, why it means so much, whatever it's feeling, whatever you're in. So we're not going to waste time. We're going to get into number 7.
Before we go through.
Spoiler. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. We can stay on the topic. No, it's okay. I want to be clear. It's a very hard list for me because there's a lot of cuties in there, and I went back and forth going through a ton of different characters, saying, you know, I wish I could put this person on, but I only have 7. I cheated a little bit a couple times, but I think it's okay, and we can.
And it kind of opens up too, because you're right. There are so many. And also we have a couple of different cantinas. We have Maz's Cantina. We have Chalmun's from Star Wars, which is where we are going to be.
Yeah, I want to say I only stuck with Chalmun's
you only stuck with Chalmun's, which is great. And I picked one bonus selection at the end of your list that wasn't on your list, and it is also a Chalmun's selection in its own unique right and way. So I'm excited about this. So we're going to dig in with number 7, the Tonica twins.
Yes. So we're going to start with the Tonica twins. Obviously, you know, not a lot of women in that cantina scene. I think maybe that's it. Maybe beyond, like, there's a couple creatures that are female, but I think we're going to start with the Tonica twins. I wanted to make sure we had some ladies on there as well as some men, and some creatures where we're not sure of how they express their gender.
That's right.
You know, I think it's all of the humans in the cantina are very striking. They did a great job casting the extras. This is the way I think about it. They do a great job casting the extras because they are all people where you're like, oh wow, they have a look. They've got like a real distinct look.
Mm-hmm.
These 2 actresses, I do not believe are actually twins, but they do look very similar. And I think you notice them in the scene where you're like,
absolutely,
there they are. They're very distinct. Very, they got their outfits look very 1950s sci-fi. I would say.
I would say that middle picture gives me a Buck Rogers vibe.
Buck Rogers, like Plan 9 from Outer Space, like, you know, the the like cheap B movie sci-fi, which I think is fun.
They need like a big ping pong ball for a hat, and then they'd be set.
Yes. But I think it's fun because it harkens back to the old stuff that they were trying to evoke with that movie. But also it gives a different flavor to that cantina where, like, a lot of them are, you know, dressed in like a spaceman outfit or a freaking, you know, rodent man or whatever. But like these ones, you're like, oh, I know exactly what these people are.
And I always remember noticing too, as that panning shot on that picture on the left, isn't one of them smoking like the cigarette with the long holder on it as that camera goes by?
That sounds right.
Yeah, but again, they were striking even as a kid seeing these movies. Like, oh, there's look at those two ladies, and look at whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I put on each one of these pictures as we go through is I found a couple of the images, but then I tried to see if there was a toy or an action figure for each one. So I threw that in there. So yeah, we've got
those have to be micro machines, maybe.
It's that micro action fleet.
Yeah.
The smaller scale ones where it was like the Bespin playset inside of like the whatever it was, and so they have like the feet that are attached to each other. But there is a set, and it was it wasn't a custom, it was an actual set. So I was kind of impressed about that.
Did they not have action figures?
I don't believe they had actual action figures.
That's wild.
One or two of these I found had customs, and some of the other ones, of course, a lot of these got action figures late in recent years for like celebrations, like what's his name with the ice cream maker? He got one later on, and Will Hood.
Yeah. It looks like there's only custom action figures for them, which is funny.
That's right.
Because there's so few women in the original trilogy that you would assume
you think they would have jumped on that.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Action Fleet. That's what it was. Thanks, Bart. So that's a fantastic number 7. Do you have any other points that you want to throw before we get out of the next one or get to the next one?
I think that's it. I just think they're distinctive. And I wanted to also make sure there were some humans in there because I feel like it's very easy to get carried away for me specifically with a bunch of little mask boys. And I wanted to make sure there were some actual human faces in there.
Absolutely. I love that. So as we move to number 7, we have our man Zutton.
We love him. And I mean, listen, I'm going to say this about everybody. I'm going to say we love him about everybody.
That's
Zutton,
fine. Totally fair.
Here's what I like about him. I like his little hump on his back. I also like his little, I'm going to say Lil about a lot of stuff. I like his little human hands that he's got there. Especially on the left, you can just see, I believe they're just regular people hands.
They're straight up people hands.
Yep. I also like his action figures, how there's 2 very distinct, very separate ones. I hate that I knew his name was Zutton without looking it up. I hate that. Makes me feel bad about myself. But I think it's just funny that he was one of the first action figures that they put out.
That's right.
I just think it's so funny that was what they chose,
That's what they picked.
Because he doesn't do anything in the movie. He doesn't do anything.
He's just there.
He's like almost a Constable Zuvio. He's almost not even in the movie.
Absolutely. That is a perfect comparison.
Yeah.
Constable Zuvio for the original trilogy Cantina. And to have 2 action figures because they changed it at some point. And
so
one of them is worth a lot of money, and the other one, everybody can get it. Everybody can get the red one. I have like 3 of the red one. The blue one, and if the blue one has the toe dent, not so much.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's funny.
They're expensive. That's the harder a blue snag, as the vintage toy collectors call it.
I knew that, but I didn't know about the toe dent. I didn't know that was
one of them has a dent in the boot on the toe that makes it different than the other one.
The thing I also
for our audio listeners, I should throw this out here real quick. For the audio listeners, we're talking about Zutton. If you don't know who the name Zutton is, it's Snaggletooth is who we're talking about from the Cantina.
But if you're cultured like us, we call him Zutton.
If you know that, if you're a real fan,
if you're in the
Patrick said it, not me.
Yeah, I do. I do like one of my favorite things on the old action figures. Mostly, sometimes it happens in the new one, but it's rare. Is that they're just like, what's he wearing? Robes? No, he's wearing a spacesuit.
That's right.
We don't care.
Jumpsuit.
He's got a hump on his back? No, he doesn't. Not anymore.
Nope. He's buff and muscly like all the new Power of the Force figures.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So, okay. Well, that's an excellent point. For Zutton, I looked up a couple of facts on a couple of these, and according to Wikipedia, Zutton is an artist.
Sure.
I don't know if he was hanging out in the Cantina for inspiration. Maybe he was having a painting or writing or drawing block, whatever his art might have been. And he needed to go get a breather. And then also, for those that don't know, because you're not a real fan, he's a Snivian male. Is his species and gender.
That's what I said. I wanted to make sure there were some women in there because I knew Zutton was a boy.
That's right. See, we gotta represent for everybody here. So good on you, Patrick. Good on you.
Thank you.
Well, let's get into number 5. Number 5, and this is a favorite for anybody. We have our gal Acmina. In fact, we had it called for earlier up in the chat.
Yeah.
Yep. David said it. B. Arthur.
Now I tricked you all because I said I wanted to make sure I got some ladies in there, but I also had Acmina coming and you guys didn't even know it. Look at her. I mean, she's great. We had this guy, Granbell Fisher, who's a musician. We met him because, I mean, it's a long story. We met him because we were doing a Studio 60 retrospective, the Aaron Sorkin show, and he was a musical guest on the show within the show. But for the holiday special,
I love that show, by the way, and I hate that I can't watch it online somewhere.
It's on YouTube because someone, I don't know who, uploaded it. But he sang "Good Night But Not Goodbye," the song that she sings in the holiday special. It's on YouTube, and I want everyone to listen to it because it's beautiful and it's truly the best the song has ever sounded. It's amazing. I want people to look it up.
We're going to get that trending this week. That's my mission. We're going to get that trending on YouTube.
You should. You absolutely should, because it is truly great. No, she's great. I mean, listen, we like Wahar, the regular bartender, the daytime bartender, but she's the nighttime bartender. And I think, just imagine if she had been in the movie, Yep. Imagine if Luke showed up and it was B. Arthur, and now when everyone watched that movie, they're like, oh, weird, that's B. Arthur. It would have been great. I don't have much to say about her, except I think she's great, and I am glad that they reintroduced her into canon. I think that that's fun. And I hope that they continue to do that with holiday special stuff, because I truly love the holiday special beginning to end. I think it's all great.
Absolutely. And I love that take. And I love this character. And I love that when you emailed me your list and I saw it, I got excited that what a great addition.
But now think about this, guys. If she's at number 5, imagine what 1 through 4 are going to be.
Imagine what's next. That's right. And also, and this is going to get into a whole other separate side of fandom. There was a roast years ago, and I don't know if you've ever heard the B. Arthur joke that Rich Eisen tells. I can't tell it on this show.
Oh, I believe I have heard this. Yes.
It's one of those things that, like, especially for the context of being at a roast, it's like jaw-droppingly funny. When I heard it originally, and that still makes me laugh every time I hear it. So of course I expect that from somebody like Rich Eisen. But anyhow, it's funny, and we can move away from there.
It's a little tease. If you're watching this, you can go find that joke.
That's right. Go find the B. Arthur joke by Rich Eisen. Number 4. We love him. Nabron Leeds.
Now I picked Nabron Leeds. I did not remember his name. Thank God. Because if I had remembered his name, there would have been a problem. I picked this guy for 2 reasons. One, let's bring him up on screen. I want you to look at him.
That's what I meant to do. I pushed the wrong button.
That's okay. That's okay.
Don't tell me how to do this show, Patrick.
No, it's fine. I'm just a producer, so I do this all the time. 2 reasons I like this guy. 1, forearms. Cool. Right? 2,
that's right.
He's perfectly ready for 2020, 2021. He's wearing a dang mask. Look at that.
His dang mask on.
He's got his dang mask on. Those are my only 2 things I like about him. I like his head. No, it's not true. I like his head. I like his little brain sticking out of his head up there. I really want to know what his face looks like.
This is one of those ones. I feel like his face is kind of like Beaker on the Muppet Babies. Like if he takes his glasses off, his eyes are gone. Like maybe if he takes his mask off, his face is just gone. Like that's just the face. That's how it works. It's attached to that hose.
Now I've never noticed.
It's just a brain there.
It's a little brain. I wonder if he's like, what's his name? Prune Face. Yeah. Prune Face was another action figure. I just wonder what number Prune Face didn't have 4 arms. I don't know. I don't have much more to say about this guy except I just like his look.
Well, we have some artistic critique too. Alex says the angled head draws the eye upwards. So
That's true.
Yeah. No lies. No lies detected. That's right. Away from the 4 arms.
Yeah.
If you're ever self-conscious about your 4 arms, just have a pointed head, and it'll take care of that problem.
It is also funny because like things like my best friend Nabron Leeds over here, if they introduced him in a new Star Wars and they were like, oh yeah, he's got 4 arms, people would be like, that's not Star Wars. That doesn't feel like Star Wars. But like, no, it empirically does. It's one of the first things you see in a Star Wars is a guy with 4 arms.
It totally does. And what's his name from Solo has 4 arms.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You're right.
I'm totally fan card
oh,
rejected. I can't think of his name.
Oh no, give me 1 second. His name. Oh my God, what is his name? We're gonna both remember this.
That's right. We're gonna get there together. We're gonna get there together. It's gonna end up in the chat before I can come up with it. He loves curling up in a Wookiee's lap.
Oh my gosh. What is his
It's
name?
not Dexter Jetster does.
Dexter Jetster also does have 4 arms. You're right.
That is a good arm. Grievous has 4 arms.
Oh
Look at us.
All right, guys, I'll leave. If you want me to leave, I'll leave.
Thanks a lot. John Favreau voiced him. That's right. Michael's got the voice. It's
what's his name? Rio Durant. Rio Durant. That's it.
We got there. Way to go,
you.
everybody. Go team, go.
All right, guys. I get it. You're right. Everyone's got 4 arms in Star Wars. I'm a dummy.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Can't think of names. Can't think of people with more than 2 arms.
Good night, guys.
What are we even doing here? See? Patrick's back, and we're starting over.
Get neighboring off the screen. I don't even want to look at him anymore.
Clean slate, Patrick.
Oh, my gosh.
Clean slate. We're going to number 3.
Okay.
Here we go.
Number 3. Woo!
Kiddick Keedcack.
It's my boy, Kiddick Keedcack.
I mean, if there's ever been a more Star Wars thing to do than say, hey, we're going to put a praying mantis in here. See you after lunch.
Yes, we love him. He reminds me of the guy from Mandalorian who showed up. His name was like Professor Munchie or something like that. What was it? Something like
that. Let's not talk about it. Let's not talk about it yet. Just I understand where you're going. Hang on.
Okay. I'll wait.
That's right.
Well,
you talk about yours, Patrick. I'll talk about mine.
I won't talk about Professor Munchie. Kiddick Keedcack. It's my favorite thing about the Cantina, which was my favorite scene in my favorite Star Wars movie, A New Hope's #1. Cantina was the best scene, but
yes,
I would watch the scene over and over and over and over again, and I would rewind my VHS tape, and I broke my VHS tape because I watched the Cantina scene too many times. But my favorite thing about the Cantina scene is, Stuart Freeborn gets sick making creatures. They don't have a lot of creatures when they originally shoot it, so they go have Rick Baker do insert shots. And he's like, I don't know, I got a Wolfman mask. You want to use that? I got a big praying mantis. We could use that. Like, he's just like throwing in random stuff that he's got.
We've got a leftover spacesuit from Doctor Who.
Yes, I love it. So they're just tossing in whatever they can get to make it look more full than it actually was.
Yes.
But that's why I like this guy. I do also like, again, that the action figure does not look like it. It's a different color. It's like
that's
not
right.
even,
and it appears to be wearing a hula skirt of some sort.
Which I do like that. But I just like that it's a completely different color.
Do we have a gender on Kiddick Keedcack? Because this may be your 3rd female on the list.
Oh, wow.
We've got a skirt going on here.
Hang on.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. And this is an actual sanctioned figure. This is not a custom, which surprised me.
Excuse me. Kiddick is a female.
Boom.
A female Yamari from the planet Huck.
Well, as one would assume, sure.
Well, let's read about some personality traits really quick.
Please.
Keedcack had a bad temper and could be made angry very easily. She was strong given her tiny frame and was known for her stealthiness. Keedcack was also very good with technology. Her diet consisted of meat and eggs.
The touch of the diet and the meat and eggs is what really does it for me right there. I mean, first of all, the technology, that's fine. I mean, what praying mantis isn't good with technology? But the diet of meat and eggs, like that just sends me over the top.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, great. What a great guy.
What a great girl. That's right. What a great girl. Well, again, this is only number 3. How do we top this? Let's find out.
Who do we got?
Number 2.
Okay, now I cheated a little bit. It's
okay. They go together.
Butter
and jelly, baby.
Main reason, there's 2 reasons why they go together. Mostly because of that action figure pack, which is one that I'm still mad I don't have. I should have bought it over the pandemic because love them both.
That's right.
And then they're also like partners in the Tales from the Cantina, the Mos Eisley Cantina book that came out in the 90s, the anthology book that I devoured as a child.
Yes.
But Yeah, no, I mean, look, big, small, they're cool. One's big, one's small. That's all you need. I did, oh my gosh, I think it was today. Let me look. Hang on one sec. When I was at Comic-Con a few years ago, Tom Spina Designs was doing a refresh on a Muff Talk outfit.
Yes.
And it was so cool. And I took a picture with it, and it was literally 2 years ago today.
Oh, hold on. Here we go. Woo-wee. Look at that.
Look at that guy.
That is fantastic.
It was very cool. I can't imagine it was the original one, but maybe it was. I know they have redone the original one.
Yes, and it very well could be. And again, shout out to my friend Pete at ATG that you didn't know earlier. He had Tom Spina on a couple weeks ago, and they talked about several of the projects and things that they've been able to work on. Because, of course, you've got the Regal Robot stuff. Yeah. The things that you can buy for your house, the custom furniture. But they also, he talked about, the stuff that they've gotten to restore and those other bits. So it was neat to hear that.
He was great on my friend Brandon's Talking Bay 94. He was just on that a few weeks ago, and it's a really good interview.
Yes, Brandon is also a Podcast of the Wills alum. So
great, he's the best.
Another great guy. Well, let's talk about this while we're still on Cabe and Muftak.
Yes.
How do we feel like this translation went? Because I feel like Cabe is good. Muftak, he's a little more surprised by something here.
Yes. Muftak's a little manspready, which
he's very manspready.
It's very manspready.
If we're going to do that, we need to put some shorts on him. Like give a little something here.
Yes. I mean, listen, I'm happy that they exist as action figures, I feel like Cabe might be a little small. Maybe.
Yeah, that scale may be off a little bit.
The scale might be off a tiny bit, but I'm not sure. Muftak looks a little too Wampa-y here for me.
It has that feel of like like the Return of the Jedi characters that they used for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yes.
They took the Wampa and they're like, change the head around. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I think I always picture him a little bit grayer. I think that's what I. But a king in every right. I'm probably going to buy this set tonight.
That's right.
On eBay.
You should. You owe it to yourself.
I owe it to myself, and I'm going to do it.
It's a reward for being on Podcast of the Wills. I mean, what can we say?
We love it.
Well, that gets us to number one.
It does. And you know what? Hang on. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. All right, Patrick has left, so we're going to kill some time here. We're going to hang out. We're going to look at Muftak and Cabe again, because first of all, the scale of that gun may be as big as Cabe himself. And I don't know, the scale could be off. You're right. But it doesn't matter.
I'm back.
Because, he's back. Good.
Let's see number one.
Let's see number one. Here we go. We're going to get it up on the screen if I can find the button. Our man, Ponda Baba, is number one. Oh, my God. What is happening here? This is the weirdest dance party video I've ever been invited to. Not saying I hate it, but does Ponda Baba have dreads?
Now,
wow.
This Ponda Baba mask, I do want to say my friend AJ McKeon bought it for me. Sent it to me without telling me that it was coming. Right. So I just opened up a box it was from, and it was a Ponda Baba head. There are no eye holes in this. So you cannot see anything in it.
It doesn't look like there's any breathing holes in that
There's
either.
no breathing holes in it. There's no breathing holes in it. There's no eye holes in it. What can you say? What can you say? I know this is disappointing. I don't have a good reason he's number one, but why wouldn't he be number one?
The mask alone is reason enough.
Yes, the mask alone, the double hands. Let's look at these hands.
Yes.
Because famously, two different types of hands because they messed up when they were doing the insert shots and they, I guess, forgot what kind of hands he had. Another favorite thing of mine, I don't know if you can pull this up, the picture of him sitting in the holiday special. He's like sitting at a table.
Right.
On the picture, you notice, and I never noticed it when I was watching it, but then I went back and watched. He's wearing a short sleeve jacket, a short sleeve orange jacket, and it's because they cut off his arm. And I guess they were like, well, we don't have another jacket. Let's just cut off the other sleeve and make it look like a short sleeve jacket that he's wearing now.
That's amazing. I'm on it. I got you.
You got it? Okay, good. It's so funny how they're like, I don't know, just cut the other sleeve off. Who cares?
Yeah, nobody cares about this. All right.
Yeah.
Tell us more about why you love Panda Baba.
Why do I love Panda Baba? I mean, he just makes such an impression in such a short amount of time. I was going to do another, double up. I was going to double up with Dr. Evazan, but I felt like that was cheating too much, especially directly after Cabe and Muff talk. But I love that scene so much. I don't like them in Rogue One, which bums me out. I think just it feels weird that they're there. And I know we talked about trying not to be negative about Star Wars, but
that's okay. It just feels off.
It feels off. And I think something that bothers me the slightest amount about the sequel trilogy. And I, for the most part, like a vast majority of the sequel trilogy.
Sure.
But I think they try to fit too many servos into the head, like masks that they use. So like Nien Nunb and Panda Baba, they're too big. The heads are too big.
They're not the right size.
They're not the right size. They look like Funko Pops. But they're very impressive, getting to see that. Yeah, there we go. Look at those short sleeves.
And I don't believe I ever realized that he had the hoofs for hands.
Yes. He does in some shots of A New Hope, because this is holiday special, but he does in some shots of A New Hope. And then when they cut to his hand on the ground, it's just a regular, like, gloved black hand.
It's a gloved black hand. And here's my favorite part of this.
That's why if you look at that action figure, it comes with both of them.
Yes, it has the different sets that you can swap out. Yeah. Which it's a good thing that as kids, we didn't have the action figures that had the swappable hands and the swappable heads, because just like the weapons, we would have lost all the hands immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my favorite part of this picture is that, I mean, I say that they look like hooves. Honestly, they kind of look like some sort of sea creature for hands, like the horseshoe crab. They look like horseshoe crabs. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
And he's also got a normal glass beer stein sitting on the table next to him, and I cannot imagine him picking that up.
Well,
unless inside those domes, there's fingers in there. Go back and look at the action figure.
Go back and look at the action figure.
Well, the problem is I deleted the action figure.
Oh no! The way that they have it is he has fingers inside of there to like hold the gun
inside of there,
which is bizarre.
Yep. Of course they do. I mean, why wouldn't they?
Of course they do.
Thanks, Lucasfilm. What a guy. What a pal. And the hair on the bottom of that mask may be the most disturbing part of that.
It's so hairy. I thought about trimming it, but I'm like, what's the point?
No, it's better the way it is. It gets back to like the old masks that they had, like the Burt Cooper masks when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Or it was like the C-3PO mask, and then it was just a shirt that said C-3PO on it. It didn't actually look like C-3PO's chest. That's a winner. There's no way about it. There's no way to say that's not a winner. So that is a fantastic top 7 list, my friend. I think that the Cantina creatures are a delight. My addition that I was going to throw in there that we alluded to ever so briefly, if I can get my screen to pop back up here, Professor Munchie, or if we were to call him by his other name, our man, Dr. Mandible.
Yes.
Dr. Mandible. And I loved this. And from the split second that he came on the screen in The Mandalorian, and I kept this in line with the theme because we're still in Chalmun's Cantina. We didn't go somewhere else. This is when Mando goes to Tatooine. As soon as it came on, I was like, Peyton Reed directed this episode. This is the ant from Ant-Man. Like, this is the ant that plays the drums in Ant-Man. No question about it. And I love those because that's also exactly what you said for the original Cantina. we've got a wolf guy over here. Bring him in. We've got a praying mantis over here. Bring that in.
There's a devil over there. Yeah.
And so Peyton Reed went, yeah, I'm going to put that in there. You got to be kidding me to think I'm not.
Yeah. And he's great.
And it's fantastic. And it's just sitting there and he's talking and they're talking about playing cards with Amy Sedaris. Like everything about it. It's one of my higher up favorite scenes in The Mandalorian for just the sheer weirdness. And I mean, the straight up wink of it all. Like he's like, yeah, I did this. What are you going to do about it?
I do also want to point out Anthony Regina in the chat is saying in the holiday special, did his arm grown back? I imagine being back. But I believe canonically in Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, the story was Dr. Evazan was like a Dr. Frankenstein-esque mad scientist who then reattached Ponda Baba's arm afterwards because they maybe loved each other. I can't remember really. But I think that is also currently in canon too. I believe that happened in a comic too.
That's exactly right. And we do have a question about, is Dr. Mandible an MD or a PhD?
My guess is it's like an honorary, college graduation doctorate. Like you invite Mandible because
honorary
he was like
letters, like he got to come and speak.
He was like a stand-up that people loved, so they brought him to come give the speech, and they're like, "We'll give you a doctorate too." I think that's probably what it was.
Well, we don't get a lot of information in that on the Wikipedia. It says Dr. Mandible was a cantina regular sitting at the bar of Chowman Spaceport Cantina in Mos Eisley when Din Djarin walked in. And then down at the bottom, it says, according to Pelimoto, Dr. Mandible was a capable sabacc player. And although he was unable to speak Galactic Basic Standard, he could understand others who spoke the language. So that's all we get.
That's all we got.
I guess he's a doctor of playing sabacc and speaking Standard Basic, or listening.
He's a sabactor.
Sabactor Mandible.
Yeah.
Hashtag make sabactor Mandible canon. That's what we're gonna have to go with.
Yeah.
Wow. Cantina creatures. They're so fun. And there's other cantinas out there, which is the glory of it all. We've got Maz's Cantina, which there's a lot of fun characters in that whole thing.
Touch on it.
And I want to circle back to what you said at the very top of this list, talking about the Tonica twins, was the idea that they identified people and characters who were very physically stood out. Yeah. You could tell. One of my favorite things in the director and the Jedi documentary from Last Jedi is when they are casting the Canto Bight cantina scenes and they show all those people in those rooms, and there's literally like a 95-year-old man who can't stand up, and there's a really large gentleman or lady or whoever it wasn't all supermodels and tall people. It was literally physically people who looked so different from one another that whether they were in clothes as a human or whether they were in prosthetics and whatever else, they were physically going to stand out and look different. And I'm always fascinated by that kind of thing.
I'm reading this oral history of Star Wars that just came out. It's like a book. It's a really thick book. Yeah. It's interesting. It's a lot of stories that you've heard, but it's like cool to see it all, laid out like that. And they were talking about, and I just Googled it, and it's apparently still a thing. There was it's called Ugly Models Agency in London. And they just get people who just look unique and have different looks. And that was who they got a lot of the Cantina people through, was this one agency that just that was their thing, was they just hired people with distinct features.
It makes me think of that poster that we saw as kids growing up of the old man that could
yes.
That guy, I could never, it was just that was his weird thing that he could do. Yeah. And he ended up on every poster you could think of because he had a unique, distinct look.
But then also in The Director and the Jedi, to go back to that, I just remembered there's the guy who comes up who's 90 years old, and he's like, I was in the cantina scene. Yes. And then they show a picture of him in the cantina scene.
Yes, absolutely. It's great. So good. Like George says, it's poetry. It rhymes. It goes in a circle.
It rhymes.
Patrick, you have given me an hour and a half of your time on this Sunday night, and I could not be more thankful for it. This has been so much fun. I have loved these conversations. I love hearing about the work you do. I love hearing the funny stories, and I know that there are tons more. And I want to encourage certainly all of the people who are watching. And I'm actually also going to throw another thank you your way, because we have a ton of people hanging out and watching tonight that are not normally here. And I know that they are here because of you, because of the George Lucas Talk Show. So thank you to all of you for tuning in tonight. I saw a bunch of these folks when Connor was on. And so I love the George Lucas Talk Show bump that I get when I have some of you guys on.
We got all the Georgie Porgies.
Yeah, that's right. All the Georgie Porgies. So thank you for being here tonight. Please tell everybody what you're working on, stuff to be looking out for. Obviously, you're on Twitter and you can be found there, but give us your plugs. Tell us what Patrick's got going on.
Yeah, I mean, follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to get more Twitter followers than the canceled NBC show Sean Saves the World. That's my quest right now. I believe I'm about 600 away. The George Lucas Talk Show, we actually, now this was not something that came out. We premiered a new episode tonight. It was going on at the beginning of the show. It was a secret thing that dropped. I imagine I believe everyone here probably knows about it at this point, but you can go watch all the old episodes on YouTube. My recommendation is, if it sounds at all interesting to you to see a comedian playing George Lucas and talking to, Kevin Smith or Whoopi Goldberg or John Hamm or whatever, go to the YouTube, find a guest that you like, and just watch that episode and you'll figure it out eventually. You don't have to be a huge Star Wars fan to watch it. You just hop on in. It's a very welcoming, good community, and I think you'll like it. The other thing is a new show that I'm producing. It's going to be live in person. It's the next iteration of ASCAT, the improv show. It's going to be at the Caveat Theater every Sunday starting August 1st, but it will also be streaming online. You can watch it anywhere. I believe it's $8, I think, to stream it online. Famous people come in, tell stories, and then improvisers do scenes based off those stories. We got some good people lined up, and I think you'll like it. It's going to be fun. And Connor's there almost every week, who plays George on that show. So
absolutely,
it'll be good.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being here. It really has been a pleasure. I want to thank everybody in the live chat for hanging out. If you're one of our audio listeners and listen to the podcast version, thank you so much for supporting the show, listening, downloading. Love for you to go give us a review somewhere. Apple, iTunes, YouTube, wherever it is. Leave comments, reviews, anything positive and happy, things you like. If you don't like it, like we said, just don't be here. But if you're here, you're having fun, you like Star Wars, I think we're okay. A couple of things. You can find us being me, pretty much most of your social media things. We are at Will's Pod, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We do have a TeePublic store where you can go buy shirts. I did put out my very first TikTok video promoting the show tonight. I'm too old for TikTok, but I'm trying because I'd love to have more people find the show and hang out with us on a regular basis. If you subscribe to us, we are youtube.com/podcast of the Wills. And then one other plug, a shout out to my buddy Mikey, who's been hanging out in the comments in the chat tonight. I will be on the Deucecast Extra again this coming Tuesday night, and we are going to be talking about the season finale of Loki. And we're going to be talking about the most recent episode of The Bad Batch. I've been lucky over the last couple of weeks to get to hang out with those guys, with Mikey and Garrison, and recap TV shows. I love Star Wars, but I love pop culture too. So I love the chance when I get to get outside the Star Wars bubble and talk about those other things. So check that out Tuesday night. I'll tweet out the links right before we go live. Another fun show talking about shows and TV and things that we love. So thank you for being here. I hope everybody has a great week coming up. And until we are together again next time, may the Force be with you always.